And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. In 2007, Chris Messina, a technology developer and blogger, suggests using the pound sign to group tweets around a common word or phrase. Since then, hashtags have changed the way we search and share information. They're a symbol that has taken the world by storm, changing everything from our social media feeds to our advertising strategies. We begin today's Open Connection with hashtag Bell Let's Talk.
Tell me about this. You pretending to tweet and text.
We weren't pretending.
I know you.
No. And I'm very insulted that you thought we were. As a matter of fact, we were looking at. Well, the first time I was looking at pictures that she had on her phone.
And what kind of picture is that?
You know what? You're a sick man. Seriously, look at him. Look at me. What kind of pictures were they? They were family pictures.
You've been doing this for a long time.
This is my 5th year with the campaign, so I've been here since the get-go, since day one, and it's amazing to see where it's gone and how it's grown, and most importantly, how people it's touched.
I think that it's done a lot of good in the years that it's been. I think it's 4, maybe years or 5, because it really has started people talking. So it's actually doing what it set out to do. And I find it's having a profound effect on young people. Mm-hmm. I've spent a lot of time with students, 19, 20-year-olds lately, and they are talking about mental health issues and their own mental health issues much more than certainly people my age.
Hi, this is Howard Mandel, available to age 5 cents for the competition.
You know, I'm thrilled with Bell for allowing me to be part of this campaign because I think that we have to remove the stigma. So the more I talk about it, the more you talk about it, the better it is for all of us, because I don't think there is anybody alive that can get through life without needing some mental health coping skills. And Bell Media, of course, has this amazing initiative, like all of the Bell aspects of the company, called Bell Let's Talk Day. And since I am a person that has suffered from mental illness for 17, 18 years, I'm here to talk about it. Mental illness is, this is going to sound weird, mental illness is not a mental illness. Because when you say mental illness, think about what you're saying. You're saying, well, it's something that's going on in your head. But it's different than a physical illness. Well, it's not different than a physical illness. What I suffer from, is a physical illness in my brain. And if you think because it's called mental illness that it's different than having diabetes or heart disease or cancer, you're wrong.
People still feel that people who suffer from addiction, even though it's been recognized as a mental illness, as an illness by the American Medical Association like 30 years ago, people still think it's a choice that people make. They are just no good. There are people who are no good, and they decide, and they make this choice to drink or do drugs, and they can't, they can change.
I went through depression as a young athlete after my first Olympics. I won 2 bronze medals for Canada and fell into a state of critical depression after. It was a big struggle, and for many years I didn't talk about it. I went on to speed skating and cycling again and shared a lot of moments of joy as an athlete, and had the opportunity one day to realize, the biggest lesson in my life actually was to realize the value of sharing the struggle as well.
I'm all about one thing. Really, the only thing I bring to this whole discussion and this whole argument is one thing: sharing. If you share, you have the chance to get help. But if you keep it inside, if nobody hears about your struggles, you're not going to get better. But I have no problem saying I have a mental health issue. I'm crazy. I have a mental health issue. I think a lot of people do, and I take care of my mental health as much as I take care of my dental health. And I believe we should all talk. And that's why the campaign's called Let's Talk. If you hear people's struggles, who you know are reasonably strong, Clara Hughes, Darryl Strawberry, Stephane Richer, these are strong people. Stephane Richer scored 50 goals twice in the NHL. He's the last Montreal Canadian to score 50 goals. So if depression could take him down, then as you're watching that, you're going, well, maybe it's not about weakness.
The Mama Wichita Center is an Indigenous-led organization that's located here in Winnipeg. We provide resources to families within the community, really with the focus of creating a healthy, happy, and safe community here in Winnipeg for our Indigenous community. Every year, in partnership with Bell MTS, we have the opportunity to pack and deliver hampers to families that really provide them everything they need for a Christmas dinner and toys for the kids. The thing I enjoy most about Bell MTS is not only are they providing financial contribution to today's events, but they're also providing volunteers. They're here doing it with us.
Let's get moving! It's happening!
The best part about doing this program is the moment that we get to take the package to the recipient's door. It's wonderful to meet the families, to see the smile on the face, and realizing that on occasion, people just need a helping hand to get through a hard period of time.
Hi, Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm very grateful for everything they do for me and my children. The hamper drive helps us celebrate Christmas and have a meal on the table for my family.
You're welcome.
Christmas can be a really challenging time, and so today's event gives people an opportunity to come and be part of something really special. And so I think it's just a wonderful way for people to give back.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Some negative effects of stigma around mental health include feelings of shame, hopelessness, and self-isolation. Breaking the stigma around mental health can be done in many ways, such as educating yourself, showing compassion, and taking action around mental health. Let's return the conversation as Martha Bernard shares her story.
I think I'm scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing because my lived experience is I've suffered from anxiety and depressive periods, and I've self-medicated with alcohol, and I've been sober for almost 2 years now. But thank you. But what I really wanted to talk about today was my secondhand lived experience with my brother Louis, and that's Louis as a little kid. And thanks for what you said about Louis. Like, yeah, Louis loved you, Mary, and he just, there was a lot of people in his life that he loved. He was born in January of '86. He was the first child of my parents, and sorry, I'm just gonna grab a tissue now. Oh, give it to me. He was a real bright spark from day one. He was an incredibly funny, outgoing, really sensitive child, and his physical prowess was amazing. He could throw and catch a ball almost before he could stand, and he loved sports. He played baseball and basketball and hockey and soccer, and he could keep up with kids twice his age. We moved to Toronto as a family when I was 5 and Louis was about 7, and he would wear his hair long at that age at 7, and he had this thick wavy hair. He had the hair that I wanted, and he was just this gorgeous child with this incredible confidence, and just rolled into this school as a 7-year-old. So I guess he was in grade 2 and I was in kindergarten, and the kids were in awe of who is this kid? Who's the new kid? And within a week, everyone knew who Louis Bernard was. And that is literally what it was like my whole life. If you didn't know Louis Bernard, you knew who Louis Bernard was. And I was Louis' sister way more than I was Martha as a child. He was a bit of a hooligan too. He gave the teachers a bit of a hard time. I think he would prefer the term class clown. But I was famous by association as Louis' sister, so I didn't really mind it. It was a good title to have, and I really looked up to him. And, I remember as a kid, we were 2 years apart, but I wanted people to think we were twins, because I wanted people to, we kind of looked alike at that age and stuff, so I wanted people to think we were even, more, closer than we were, He was also a pretty fast kid, getting into trouble, swearing, kissing girls, smoking, like at a pretty young age, and bringing kids with him on these like crazy adventures. We moved back to Newfoundland a few years later, and he did the same thing at our new school there, took over. He always had older girlfriends. Like when we were in grade 5, when he was in grade 5, he was dating girls in grade 7, and I don't even know like who even has a girlfriend in grade 5, but it was like he was dating these like beautiful older girls, and it was pretty hilarious. So I would get into class a couple years after Louis, and the Louis sister label would always be a bit difficult to shake. The teachers kind of had their eye on me, unsure if they were getting like another troublemaker, and I was a bit of one, but not really like Louis.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Self-medicating depression is the act of using drugs, alcohol, or other substances to cope with depression without professional guidance. It can be a response to everyday pressures, or it can be a way to manage symptoms of an undiagnosed mental health condition. Let us return the conversation with Martha.
He went from being someone that like everyone wanted to hang out with to being someone that I think was moving a little bit too fast for some of his friends. He started getting into fist fights and drinking and some drugs, I think, by grade 7. And he was still, a sweet kid, but I think there's a lot of pressure that goes with being the center of attention. It was a lot to live up to. And a lot of the things that he did were to make other people laugh and to include other people. I think he was always very inclusive of other kids. He always was inclusive of kids who had disabilities, of kids who, didn't have a lot of friends. He was like, I remember a story that a girl who was a couple years younger than me, she was really shy, and when she got into school, she remembers Louis always saying hi to her by name, and she said that it just made her feel like she could get through the day. And so I remember he always used to talk to the janitor who none of the kids who were 12 years old were having a conversation, but he would have a full-on conversation with people that worked in the school. So he was just he was very charismatic. So junior high age, he started to display some symptoms of OCD. At least we think that was what was going on. He used to get in fights with my dad about bringing a pencil to school. He refused to bring a pencil, and we couldn't understand why he wouldn't even just pretend that he was going to take a note. But I think it was something that was going on, and he didn't know what was going on. He was really scared, and I think he was acting out because of the fear that he was feeling. And I think at this point didn't want to go to the bathroom at school, so he was staying home a lot because he couldn't get through the day because he couldn't use the bathroom at school. So at this point his grades were slipping, and he was getting into more fights, and he was drinking more on the weekends, and I guess that may have been a bit of self-medication for symptoms that he was experiencing at that point. He made it through junior high, but he dropped out of high school, I think in grade 10, but it might have been, grade 10. He was finding it difficult to connect with his friends. He was feeling depressed, and he started checking at this point. I remember when him and I would watch movies together, he would be rewinding. After 15 minutes, he would have to rewind to the beginning. I'd be like, what is going on? This is so annoying. I'm just trying to watch this movie. And I didn't understand that was his OCD, and he also would get me to check behind the couch as we were leaving the house and say, there's nothing back there, right? There's nothing back there. And I'd be like, no, there's nothing back there. And, I didn't know what was going on. None of us really knew what was going on. But he did become really hard to live with at that point. And that was his OCD. And, I began staying out more and, drinking with friends, and our paths would still cross in social situations sometimes, and that old charming Louis was never too far away. And he still, even when he was sick and going through this, and obviously it was clear to my family that something was going on, he would still manage to flirt with my friends when they came over, and they would still end up having crushes on him. And it was like, so I couldn't believe it. I was like, he still was, he was driving me crazy, but my friends would be like, your brother's so cute. But he did end up getting a diagnosis of OCD, and he ended up in the hospital for the first time in 2006. And then a few months later, that was in the short stay unit, and then a few months later, he ended up in the psych ward after he was with some friends. He'd been taking some medication for OCD at this point, and he ended up in the psych ward after smoking a joint with some friends, and he went into full psychosis and was in a manic state for a few days, and that's when he was diagnosed with bipolar as well. And apparently the medication that he was on was very bad for bipolar, the medication that he was on for OCD. So that kind of started, that was 2006, and that started a cycle of medication, trying different things, in and out of the hospital, manic phases, depressive phases, drugs that made him sleep all the time, drugs that allowed him to do what he wanted to do. He got his GED from a school in St. John's, and he ended up trying to move to Halifax at one point, and that didn't work out. But it was just a very confusing thing because it's so hard to know. It was like a chicken and egg situation with the medication and the illness, and not knowing whether the label even matters. The one doctor said it doesn't matter what we call it. We're throwing drugs at this to see what works. And another doctor said, it's more of an art than a science. And it is in the mental health field at this point. It's more of an art than a science. It's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like figuring it out. We don't know exactly what works. There hasn't been enough research. I don't know what type of research would have had to have been done on Louis to really figure out, how to make him well.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Taking time out for mental health can help people feel calm and in control. Some ways to take time out for mental health include doing a hobby, going for a walk, or doing deep breathing. In this final segment of Open Connection, Martha shares how her brother coped with mental health.
I guess since 2006, he was in the hospital about 6 or 7 times. So it feels like an average of about once a year for different reasons. And I remember his kindness to other people in the hospital. He met a lot of friends in the hospital. A couple of his girlfriends he met in the hospital. Still the womanizer. He really, the ladies loved Louis from day one until the end. But he made friends in the hospital. He was so kind to people in the hospital, and I would take him out for a cigarette, and other people would not be on cigarette. They wouldn't have that privilege yet. They would still be inside, and they took away the smoking room at the Waterford, which I really wish they didn't do that because it really helped a lot of the patients there. And I would give him cigarettes to bring back in. Like, I didn't know, I was like 22 at the time. Like, I should have known better, but he was begging me, and, I didn't want him to be going through nicotine withdrawal on top of everything else he was going through. But I didn't know he was giving them to all the other patients. They were all smoking in the bathroom. And one of the nurses had to say to me, like, are you the one who's supplying the cigarettes? Are you the cigarette mule? And like, can you please stop? And I was like, okay, like, or you can't come back to visit anymore. So I was like, yeah, okay. I had to tell Louis that I had to stop. But he was like he would be like, there's a girl in there. She needs a cigarette. She's dying for a smoke. And it's like, he didn't want to see people suffer. Like he wanted to help people. That was one thing that he never relented on. Like, he didn't know what he could do. He had a job at a few places for about a month at a time and stuff, and he didn't know quite what he wanted to do, but he always talked about writing a book about OCD. He always talked about wanting to help others with mental illness, with OCD, with he had severe OCD, like he, along with possibly bipolar and possibly schizophrenia or symptoms of, but he had severe intrusive thoughts that were inappropriate, intrusive thoughts that he couldn't stop. And it's a very, very severe form of OCD. So, like he wasn't someone who was constantly washing his hands. That was a part of it early in his life, but for him it was these intrusive thoughts that he could not stop. But, his sensitivity, his kindness was one of the reasons why he suffered, because he felt so much. He felt so much compassion for everyone in the world. He was so friendly and so chatty to the homeless. He would give the homeless food or money. Like, he would go to my mom's house and take a bunch of bananas that she just got from the grocery store and go give them to the homeless. He loved playing soccer up until the end. He loved playing soccer with especially the international community in St. John's that were like awesome soccer players. He loved playing with them. And, he had so much empathy for the struggles of third world countries, and he loved to laugh. He had an amazing sense of humor. Anyone who knew Louis knew that to make him laugh felt really good. And he loved to laugh. He saw the good in people. He felt deeply, and he lived deeply, even while living with such inner pain. Towards the end there, the last year of Louis' life, he had one period of time where he would keep trying, like I said, and keep having hope. And there was one period of time in the fall of 2013 where he and my dad did 30 days straight of getting up every morning and going to the gym at 9 a.m. So, that was because it was hard for him to get up early because of his medication, and he'd sleep off until the afternoon. And so it was every day going to the gym, trying to get back into mental shape, and that lasted, and then it didn't last after that, but it was like one of those final pushes. And in January of 2014, for the first time ever, because Louis always took his medication, because he had hope that it would work. But for the first time ever in 2014, my parents noticed that at the end of a month, they found 13 out of 30 days where he hadn't taken his pills. They found the envelopes. So we're not exactly sure what was going on there, but that was a conscious decision on his part. And that was about a month before he took his life. And, the week before he was talking to my parents, he was telling them he was struggling. My dad drove to the hospital a couple times. He didn't want to go. So, who knows, but he suffered a lot for a long time. And, he continued to fight. He held on. He used to say to me, I've got to hold on for Alice and Edward, right, who are our neighbors, who are these children that he was really close with. A lot of the baby pictures with the kids are them. And, he held on, I think, a lot for his family and friends who loved him, but he was suffering so much. So I just, I love him and I miss him so much, and I just wish that there was a way that he could still be here and that he could have hope, and so I just hope that we are able to do that for others, because it's just too bad that, this extremely bright light had to go out.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.